Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com, back with the solo PvE tier list. Update 42 is about to hit the consoles, and the Gold Road chapter is out, introducing the scribing system. So how will this change solo PvE? I'm about to tell you. So, Update 42 Gold Road chapter introduced grimoires and scripts. What this is basically new skills you can manipulate with scripts to basically fit in a weakness for your current build. The downside is it does require a chapter purchase, so it is behind a paywall. Update 42 also didn't see a whole lot of class balance changes. A lot of the things that were currently meta are still there. Now, I've changed up how I do my tier list currently. I'm doing just the class, and I'll give you my take on magic and stamina. The reason why is the hybridization change means that most players are playing medium armor, and they're just stacking the attribute that they're using for their main spammable. So take the Templar, for instance. If you're using puncturing sweeps as your main spammable, which costs magic, likely you're going to run medium armor, and you're going to stack max magicka as your resource. You're playing a stamina Templar? Exact same thing, you're just going to stack stamina. The reason why is it gives you more ability to use your main spammable, but getting the benefit of medium armor, which doesn't over-penetrate. The pen cap in ESO is around 18,500 in veteran content. Beyond that, you have no more benefit for any more penetration. So solo players want to reach that pen cap and then get as much spell and weapon damage as possible. And that's why medium armor is so strong. But you can play it magic or stamina, just basically depending on your main spammable. So with that being said, let's break down the best and worst classes for the Elder Scrolls Online solo PvE. First up is the Necromancer ranked C Tier. So the Necromancer did receive a strong buff through the signature script Warrior's Opportunity, because a lot of their damage is martial. So this makes up for a weaker solo PvE class. Blast Bones got reworked in Update 41, and most folks are using Blighted Blast Bones. We rank Necro as C Tier one of the worst on our list, just because you're lacking bar space, you don't have all the major buff source like other classes do, and you have weaker ultimate choices. Moreover, it's just more complicated than other builds on this list, so you can pull it off, but you're going to have to do a lot of sweat in comparison to playing a Templar or a Sorcerer. The pros are you're very unkillable. You have tons of built-in survivability, great resource sustain, and the animations are cool and look good. If you love the Necro and want to play one, we'd recommend the Stamina Necro. The Magcro currently is just significantly weaker because it lacks the AoE damage that the Stamina Necro has. You'll have to run AoE proc seths or change your morphs, and you'll start questioning, why am I just not playing Stamina? Scythe will keep you alive, but it just won't do nearly as much damage. Also, you're going to be looking towards a scribing system to fit in some of those missing buffs and/or skills, and that Warrior's Opportunity to boost your martial damage. The Stamcro is just better and can run Runecarver's gear set reliably. It's fun and really hard hitting. A lot of people are playing this again as DPS class in trials due to the scribing and the scripts that were released increasing your damage. So don't give up on the Necro just yet. It's just much weaker in solo content due to its complexity and the reliance on getting the Grimoire Traveling Knife or others to do your main spammable, which is locked behind a paywall. Next up is the Nightblade, and we rank the Magblade B Tier on our list because it suffers from similar problems that the Necro has. So the Nightblade currently feels very similar to what it did in last patch, and scribing skills really didn't fit in the missing gaps that the Nightblade currently has. The too long didn't read on the Nightblade is, it just feels like a PvP class, where in ESO, the skills are not determined by what content you play, so there's not different skills for PvE and different skills for PvP. So the Nightblade is obscenely strong in PvP, and just lackluster in PvE currently. The pros of the Nightblade, you have good passive healing, you have an in-class execute, and minor cowardice via power extraction. And a lot of your damage is conditional, wants you to hit from the flank. This is very hard to do without a tank taunting and wheeling the targets around for you. Moreover, you have lower AoE damage than other classes, and this is one of the biggest pitfalls. If you want to play a Nightblade, we'd recommend Magic, because for most players, it's going to be easier to survive when your main spammable can heal you versus the stamina. You also can use Traveling Knife Grimoire to fill in the missing gap for a better spammable, but it's hard to resource sustain, and Swallow Souls is probably your best choice. For the Stamina Nightblade, it feels weaker than other classes, but you have Minor Cowardice is really strong in Infinite Archives. but the Nightblade just hasn't got anything that really fills in the gaps to move it up the list. Moving on to the Templar, and we rank it A- tier. So the Templar is really good in solo content. It's basically the easiest to pull off as a beginner if you like melee builds. Because your main spamable puncturing sweeps, the magic morph heals you while doing damage. That's what a lot of the Templar does, is heal you while doing damage. I remember first playing and going, wow, my main spamable heals me? Yes, it does. So it might not be the best overall or the most overall damage for solo content, but it's one of the easiest and simplest playstyles. Moreover, you have Beam. So when you go from Puncturing Sweep, as the boss gets lower, you can use Radiant Glory or Execute, and it will still heal you. So you can heal doing AoE trash, you can heal doing boss single target fights as they go lower. There's no lack of healing in the Plar's kit. It's very simple. Like I said, the rotation is easy. Throw down a couple dots, use your spamble, easy to go. The main weaknesses are your class ultimates are much weaker than other classes. You have to rely on Fighter's Guild or Mage's Guild to find a better ultimate. Your AoE damage is a bit shorter, so you're going to constantly refresh those dots to maintain high damage. And tight bar space. You're always going to be lacking something, whether it resource sustain, more AoE, and you just need 1 or 2 more bar spaces to make it feel good. If you want to play the Templar, we recommend Magic, primarily because of puncturing sweeps. It heals you, does great damage. Stamina Templar can also do really good damage and maybe even better than the Magplar, but for solo players, it's just hard when your main spamble doesn't heal and you can do a little bit less damage and have almost infinite healing. Next up is the Warden. We rank it A tier. In update 42, the Gold Road chapter, Warden is in a very good place all around. Is powerful, good utility, offensive, and healing. You have 2 different unique ways to play: Bleed using a Stamina Warden, or the Chilled status effect using a Magic Warden. The biggest hurdle you're going to play with the Warden is resource sustain, but if you can figure it out, it is one of the strongest solo or dual classes in the game. The Warden's strengths are great class buffs. You have almost everything you need from your class kit. You have unique buffs like Minor Brittle, which gives extra critical damage, and it's very hard to find that in ESO. You also have Major and Minor Breach, so penetration built in with Deep Fissure, allowing you to get that pen cap very easily. The cons, it lacks some of the raw damage other classes on this list have, and sustain is brutally difficult. Lastly, you need to double bar the Wild Guardian ultimate for the most damage possible, and this just doesn't have the utility because of that double bar requirement. If you're going to play the Warden currently for solo PvE, we recommend a Magic Warden. It's a bit stronger due to the Chilled status effect emphasis. You can use double Frost Staff if you want, and quickly block for high damage mitigation, and it's very unique and different. The Stamina Warden builds into bleed damage, trying to emphasize the hemorrhage status effect. The main downside is it doesn't have the utility of the Magden and also doesn't have the range built in. So the double frost gives you a lot of utility and range, which is nice playing solo to avoid damage. Next up is the Sorcerer A+ tier on this list. We rank it this high because of survivability, damage, and sustain. The main issue with the Sorcerer is bar space and the requirement to double bar pets, specifically AoE damage. The lack of AoE damage is one of the biggest reasons it holds it back from S tier. The biggest buff to the Sorcerer is through the class mastery script, giving you a solid no pet option paired with Storm Curse's Revenge. That is one of the best AoE builds currently, though it's locked behind a paywall requiring you to get a Grimoire scripts and so on to take full advantage. The Sorcerer's pros, it's always been a boss shredder, some of the highest single target damage in the game right now. It's very simple and easy to play, double barring pets. It has unreal healing with critical surge, and you throw Pale Order on top of it, it just feels illegal to have that much healing. The downside, we've already talked about the pets. Putting the pets on both bars just really tightens up the bar space and not giving you a lot of utility or choices. And you have Minor Prophecy passive, so the Stamsork wants to kind of run spell critical buff rather than weapon critical buff, which kind of makes a unique, weird playstyle, having to run potions or another skill to take advantage of the extra crit built into your class. The 2 versions of the Sorcerer, Magic versus Stamina. Magic is easier to play, you have more range, and you have great survivability. Stamsork, you have more melee spammable options, and you have really good AoE damage or single target. The issue with the Stam versus Magicka Sork is you need to swap in some skills constantly depending on the content. It's really hard to have your bars set up for both fights, AoE or single target. So if you don't mind swapping constantly and you have really good survivability and situational awareness, Stamina Sorc for you. If you want something simple, easy, set and forget, go Magic Sorc, double pets. Next up is our first S tier class, and that's the Dragonknight. It is incredibly strong in solo PvE in update 42. If you're pushing veteran hard mode content, magma shell or corrosive armor, and the raw damage output, both single target AoE, combined with the survivability is incredible. The problem is you're going to need high actions per minute to utilize the DK in its fullness. Constant bar swaps, managing a lot of timers and debuffs and buffs along with dots, and that's the real downside of the class. If you master it though, especially in Infinite Archives, you can use Talons and Deep Breath on the Mag DK with False God's Trial set. You can have just incredible AoE damage, single target, built-in interrupts, and survivability, making it one of the strongest in the game. The big downsides of the Dragonknight are healing. Unlike the Templar or the Sorcerer, you don't have as much built-in healing outside of Deep Breath. So you need to use Pale Order or some other skill or gear to really take advantage of pushing things solo. It's higher difficulty, it's harder to play. You know, you're gonna have to do a lot of bar swaps, you're gonna have to manage a lot of dots and timers, and if you wanna push those higher scores, you're gonna have to learn this fluently. And sustain. So despite the sustain buff the class has had, if you're spamming Talons and Deep Breath to get the most out of your AoE damage, it can be hard to manage. But the DK is in a great spot for solo content right now. We'd recommend playing the Magic Dragonknight. Even using medium armor, you're still able to spam Talons and Deep Breath and get more AoE damage built in and a little bit more utility if you're playing duo. Or the Stamina Dragonknight is also fun and useful, but it just can't spam those big, huge, massive AoE abilities like the Magic Dragonknight can. If you don't have access to the Arcanist class, this would be the class we'd recommend for serious solo PvE players. Moving on to the best. That's the Arcanist ranked S+ tier. The Arcanist is the best solo PvE class, still S+ tier in update 42 Gold Road chapter. The last two patches have seen back-to-back nerfs to this class, but it's still just the best. It has great range. The beam is incredible. Resource sustain is easy as a breeze. Almost everything you do heals you, gives you a shield, gives you resource sustain, and you just have built-in penetration, making you just a behemoth on the battlefield with very, very little effort, unlike the DK. You're not going to have to sweat for this. Fate Carver still melts enemies, both single target and AoE, and you have almost all of your really important buffs built into your kit. So you don't need the scribing system or grimoires to make this thing shine. It shines just built in with all of its skills already. The downsides of the Arcanist are the damage nerf. You did get a little bit of damage nerf last patch, and you can feel it. You have a long channel with Fate Carver, so if you're not used to that, you're gonna have to block cancel it to get out of bad stuff or to bash an enemy or something. So it can be a little bit tricky timing Fate Carvers properly. And you just have too many good skills, so you can't fit them all on your bar, and you have to make critical choices on what skill to use, when, and what context. The Arcanist is still the Swiss Army knife of ESO solo PvE. If we were to give you advice on what to play, we'd say Stamina Arcanist. The reason why is you can make use of either Anzel's Torment or Perfected Coral Riptide effectively and not run out of magic. The Magic Arcanist will find that you're using Flail too often, which costs stamina, and Flail also just got a sustained nerf. So you're likely to run out of stamina a lot easier. This can be good for players that are very tactical with their resource management and want to run Perfected Coral Riptide and just tank their resources intentionally. But for most players, you're going to have the best bet, easy set and forget skills, gear sets with the Stamina Arcanist, and just melt with zero sustain issues. If you run out of stamina, you can't block, you can't dodge, and likely you're dead. And update 42 changes. Stamina Arcanist is still the best solo PvE class. But what is your opinion? Where am I right? Where am I wrong? And thanks for watching.